tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
The State House of Assembly has passed a resolution calling on the Speaker, Hyacinth Aondona Dajoh, to disregard the summons from the National Assembly Public Petition Committee. The Assembly argued that the summons contravened the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. The House plans to take legal action against the National Assembly while also requesting investigations by the Nigerian Bar Association and the Inspector General of Police into the individuals who signed the petition. The Benue State House of Assembly also called on the National Assembly caucus from Benue State to come for proper engagement with the House to ascertain why the state is portrayed in a bad light at the National Assembly, adding that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Benue State House of Assembly, is not answerable to the National Assembly, saying Section 101 has given the House the powers to legislate on its business without external control. The member representing Katsina Ala West State Constituency, Bemdu Ipusu, accepted the decision of the House to take the National Assembly to court and suggested that lawmakers should join the guardians of democracy in the case for misleading the National Assembly. Ipusu also said the group, in mentioning the names of the suspended members, mentioned Peter Uche, which shows that the group lacks knowledge of what transpired on the floor of the House that day, and wondered why the National Assembly would want to take over the functions of the Benue Assembly that is performing its duties effectively, stressing that the three arms of government in the state are not fighting each other. Asim, what do you make of this story?
Well, I think in Nigeria here, we have found out that the theory propounded by Baron Stanley Montesquieu is being confused and is being, butchered at the whims and caprices of political power mongers. Now, you know that under our Constitution, Section 4 gives the legislative arm of government the powers to make law. I'm talking about Section 4, reading it all throughout the last subsection that talks about the legislature having the powers to make law, for, good governance of Nigeria. Now, going back again, you find that under that particular constitution, Section 5, give powers to the executive arm of government, to execute the laws that are made by, the legislator, the legislative arm of government. Then Section 6 now gives judicial arm of government, which is the judicature, the right to interpret, the laws made by, the legislative in Section 4. So if you look at the hierarchy or the order of arrangement of these three arms of government, in my own opinion, without, the legislative arm of government, the executive arm, and even the judicial arm of government will not operate. They cease to operate. The reason, from my opinion, is because of the fact that it is the legislative arm of government that make laws that will guide both the executive and also guide the judiciary or the judicature. If those laws are not available, then executive cannot, execute, any law, and the judicial arm of government also cannot interpret, any law. So that is why the Constitution consciously labeled this, in that particular order of power, in my own opinion. That is why you have Section 4 for legislative, you have Section 5 for executive arm of government, then you have Section 6. So you have 4, 5, 6. So in that chronological order, I will say that the one that comes first is the most powerful and the most important, that governs the other one. Now, if you go down to that section, even that Section 5 that talks about executive powers, as the case may be, there is a particular, section 2A, which I'm going to read here, said, that the governor has the right to exercise those laws and execute those laws made by the legislature in the House of Assembly, etc., as case may be, then you go to section 2A. It says that shall be vested in the governor of that state and made subject to, as aforementioned, and to the provisions of any law made by a House of Assembly be exercised by him either directly or to the deputy governor. So what this particular section 52A is even talking about is that the governor has a duty to respond and obey and carry out any particular function that is carried out by the legislative arm of government. That is why section 5 sub 2A is quite succinctly embedded, that the governor must do this. If it's not available, the deputy has to do what? Do or execute the functions of an executive based on the laws made by the House of Assembly of a state. Now, coming to this particular Benue and the other states that are having problems where the House of National Assembly has intervened or waded in, I want to say with due respect that under section 11 sub 4 of the 1999 Constitution, the National Assembly cannot, by wave of the hand, invade a state legislative arm and begin to turn out or take over the responsibilities as prescribed in section 4 of the 1999 Constitution. Reasons are not far-fetched. Now, if you go back to section 11 sub 4 that I just highlighted and cited just now, you find that it is stated the condition for which the National Assembly, being the House of Reps, be the House of Representatives or Senate, can take over the functions of making laws for Benue State or any other state at all where there is crisis, is embedded in section 11 sub 4. It says that at any time when any House of Assembly of a state is unable to perform its function by reason of situation prevailing in that state, the National Assembly may make such laws for the peace, order, and good government of that state with respect to matters on which the House of Assembly may make law. But the one that tickles my fancy here is if you go to section 11 sub 5, it's telling you that for the purposes of section 4, assuming the National Assembly or House of Reps, House of Senate want to take over the function of a House of Assembly of a state, you cannot do that until you fulfill this subsection 5, of section 11, that says that for the purposes of section 4 of this section, a House of Assembly shall not be deemed to be unable to perform its function so long as the House of Assembly can hold a meeting and transact business. So in this state now, like Benue State, they are sitting. Can they form a quorum? They can form a quorum. Can they transact business? They can transact. The governor has not gone there to pull down the assembly structural edifices like it happened in River State. Like as it is now, the particular issues there, the legislators have not taken daggers and cloaks and arms and begin to butcher themselves in an atmosphere that is bringing this obtrusive rancor, as the case may be. You find out that the House of Assembly can function, so there'll be no need for the National Assembly, so be it, to say they want to go and delve into the actions of another legislative arm, even though on the regional level. This is what I'm talking about, federalism. And federalism is not being practiced in Nigeria. Democracy is kept in abeyance. Otherwise, I don't know why this should come. And let me put this succinctly straight again. Under section 4 sub 8 of the 1999 Constitution, it says that the judicature has the right. So those Benue House of Assembly members who said they are approaching the court, I agree with them. Let them go under section 4 sub 8, another section 46 sub 1, and even apply and restrain the National Assembly from coming to obtrusively and arbitrarily take over their functions as they are clamoring to do in that particular state. We must have to have some distinctions in governance, democracy, rule of law, etc., as the case may be, and the arms of government, as we have put it succinctly. So I do not see any reason why the National Assembly wants to take over that function, because under the Constitution, it is not that it is explicitly stated in Section 11, Sub 4, and Sub 5. Situations that will occasion where the NASS can, hurriedly go and, take over functions of a regional House of Assembly. That is my take on this one in the first instance.
All right, Barrister Sims. If I may ask you, what is the minimum number of seats or members that must constitute a state House of Assembly, according to the Constitution? The
Constitution states it should not be less than 24 and should not, be more than 40.
Okay, and then if they are, what is the quorum that must legislate? Is it 2/3 or 1/3?
The 1/3 is 1/3 for you to sit. 1/3 of the strength of the members of the House is what is needed for you to sit. Then 2/3 is what is needed for you to pass a bill into law. 2/3 is what is needed for you to give imprimatur to nominations by governor, for instance, the commissioners, etc., and some other things. 2/3 is what is needed for budget. That is why you find out that whenever the assembly wants to, the president or governor wants to present the National Assembly, all members of the assembly will be invited in a plenary. They'll send notices to all members that the governor or the president is coming to present, his or her bill, a budget bill or appropriation bill to the House, so that everybody will leave his holiday time to come in there for them to obtain 2/3 of majority of, that is, of all the members of the House. No members.
Very well.
That is the situation.
Now I'm asking you this question because Benue State House of Assembly comprises of 32 members.
Yes.
Now out of 32 members, 13 was suspended, leaving them with 19 members. Now, Benue State House of Assembly has been sitting 19 members. Do you think that is constitutional?
Well, if they
have been legislating. So when you divide it, is 19 2/3 of 32? Can it form a quorum?
Well, I'm not a mathematician, but I believe that 19 of 2/3, 19 of 32 also, I think you should need a number
at least
more
20.
Than maybe like 2021. So, and if the assembly is functioning under the full strength as required by the Constitution, whatever decisions they have reached or bills they have passed all become null and void. That is in the case of Joshua Dariye in Plateau State.
Okay.
The Supreme Court made it succinctly clear, very clear, without any let or hindrance, that the numbers needed for a quorum in the House cannot be reversed. The numbers needed for an appropriation bill to be passed that requires 2/3 cannot be controverted, cannot be circumvented, as the case may be, cannot go around it. That is, you must have to follow it because that is what the Constitution states. And that once a Constitution states the method a thing should be done, you cannot begin to prevaricate. You cannot begin to say you want to be prebendal and then you want to say, circumvent, and go around it, to suit your whims and caprices. It happened in Joshua Dariye case when they said that you cannot, what is needed to impeach a governor is 2/3 majority of all members of the House of Assembly. So now, if 9 people see that to say they have impeached a governor, it means that that particular exercise was an exercise in futility. So Benue State, if you are listening to us here, I am saying that you, the Speaker of Benue House of Assembly, if 19 is what you have to begin to perform your duty, if I remove you now, it now becomes 18. It means that you need a minimum of 20 to do a bidding that needs 2/3 majority for you to act and get a resolution. 2/3 is 21 or thereabout, as the case may be. 19, from what we have calculated there, is not up to the minimum, reducible requirement of 2/3 to pass bills into law in the House. But as per quorum of the House, 1/3 is needed. Maybe 19 can serve that, and the House can begin to see. And let me shock you very, deeply. Are you aware that if you go to that 109, 100, 101, 102. You are going to find out that people have asked me this question. Assuming they are not able to form a quorum, what happened? Does that mean the house is short? No. What the constitution says is that the moment you people are not able to form a quorum to sit, you just begin to adjourn. You begin to adjourn. You begin to adjourn till you are able to get that quorum for you to operate. You know, it does not mean you must close, unlock the House of Assembly, as case may be. Once you come in, you find out that you are not able to sit because of due to lack of quorum. You adjourn for the day. You now adjourn. I think that was what happened before the crisis escalated in River State, where somebody had to, I think the speaker then had to adjourn, sign, dine. You understand? Around December, before he now had a rethink, and when he was now power hungry, he now had to say he wants to reconvene the house, and that crisis now started, and the court now began to give orders. So they are aware that you can begin to have your 1/3 and hold your meetings, but you cannot do business. That is what the court said in the Judge Shadariye's case, that you cannot do business of 2/3. If you have 1/3 to sit, you cannot do business of 2/3. So everything you've done within that ambit is become null and void.
All right, very well.
That's the challenge, how high the obstacles, and always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about